So good morning and welcome to our fourth and final day of our seventh Virtual Training Institute. We want to welcome you all this morning. And as we let participants in, I'm going to launch a poll. But before that, I just want to remind everybody that at the end of the session, when the session ends, an evaluation will automatically pop up. So we ask that you complete that evaluation. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And this is just so that we know what role each of you has within the adult education system. Okay, so it looks like everybody who is on has completed the poll. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. And it looks like most are instructors, some others. I'm guessing those might be people like transition specialists. And then we have some instructors and program administrators. So I'm going to stop sharing the poll at this point. And I am going to let Melissa and Juan introduce themselves. Their topic is where to next, how to support learners' next move through adult advising. Student advising.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us bright and early this morning. It's great to be here, and we're excited to share about our student advising program at the English Empowerment Center. My name is Melissa Ray. I'm the Faculty Support Manager at the English Empowerment Center, formerly the Literacy Council of Northern Virginia, which you may have heard of. We are now the English Empowerment Center. And my role with student advising is about 6 years ago, we started the student advising program at our program. And so I was one of the individuals who started and founded and got it rolling initially. And I'll let Juan introduce himself now.
Good morning. My name is Juan Perez Mercado. I'm the Student Services Coordinator for the English Empowerment Center. And my role to the Student Advising Program, I'm the most recent, candidate to get the baton to run the program. We have an amazing session for you guys, and we hope that you'll be interested in our nice little advising program.
So at this point, I'm going to let Ramona, do the disclaimer.
So we have a disclaimer. The content or opinions expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect or present the views, positions, or policies of the Maryland Department of Labor, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply an official endorsement by the Maryland Department of Labor.
Now, before we begin, what I'd like to do is ask everybody in the chat who put other for their role in your work environment. If you put other, I'd love to see in the chat what your role is with your program, so that we can get an idea of what you do and how you relate to student advising. That would be really great for us to know. And Ramona, if you could let us know what those answers are.
Okay, learner specialist. Career coach. NEDP coordinator, advisor, assessor for NEDP, instructional specialist.
Perfect. So we got some people that will definitely
Yeah, sounds like this is a good crew for this presentation. Okay, I'm going to get started. Okay, so a little bit about the English Empowerment Center. We are the crucial first steps of English instruction. We work with beginning level adult English language learners. They are typically not served by other organizations in the area at the lowest levels. So we really meet the need of students who struggle to get by with little to no English skills or limited economic opportunities. With us, they learn the basics of reading, writing, speaking, and understanding English, and empowers them to move on after us to further education and or employment opportunities.
Yeah, the key term there is empowerment. Our goal is to start the student either from the very beginning or at least leave them with a 6th grade reading level. We want to build a great pathway for the student, and through educational opportunities such as this, we can absolutely kind of harness that pathway for them.
So the broad purpose of this program that we created and that we're currently running is that we want to improve retention, motivate students, and help students reach their goals. There's a lot of research that indicates that when learners engage with a school or a program beyond the classroom through an advisor type relationship, these things improve. Program retention improves, student motivation improves, and students are more likely to reach their goals. And that is really the broad purpose here, is to help students bring their dreams to fruition by offering this support.
So today's objectives will definitely identify goals of a student advising program, kind of what why we're here, why we do this. Recognize the importance of volunteer recruitment and training quality advisors. The people who touch our students, who speak with our students, are those who have the ability to create the most change with them. And to grab quality advisors is very key. Will identify students who might benefit the most from advisors. We have some nice example responses from our intake program and exit interview for you guys, as well as we'll be able to utilize simple intake and exit forms in their own student advising program. I just spoke on that. We have great examples for you.
So we want to talk a little bit about why we created this student advising program. What we noticed in the English Empowerment Center was that sometimes our students became so used to our classes and our teachers and had built such community that they were sometimes hesitant or reluctant to leave us and move on to something new and different. And another reason is because, you know, with English language learners, especially those who come to us, are at the lower end of their journey in learning English. And so they may not have the resources and the access to the resources in the community. So it's kind of an unknown for them. You know, what do they do next? They may not be aware of everything that's available to them. And we know that that can be the case. So we want to help to guide them to this getting into the unknown and make it familiar and not so scary. We also want to have students to leave the center with an actual plan in place to guide them on where to go and what to do after the empowerment center. So examples of this are local adult education programs. A lot of them will go to further English language learning centers to increase their English skills. Some move on to community college, some do job training in vocational trade schools, and some are hoping to enter the workforce. And we also want this program to help the students gain confidence in their future endeavors by taking next steps. Sometimes the students have a little bit of a lower confidence level with their English skills, even when they're leaving us, and they may be hesitant to reach out to these resources. And we want to really encourage them, show them that there is support for them, and help to build that confidence in them that they can do this. And with a little bit of help, we can guide them in the process. And then the final thing why to do this advising program is that it helps the student to create a deeper understanding of the importance of goal setting and building a career search for them going forward. Goal setting, you know, it's been shown that goal setting is really important in achieving goals, and it helps people plan out their future. It helps them see where they're going, what is next, and it's really a good way for them to sit down with somebody and help them practice that skill of goal setting and help them sort of become somebody who does this in the future, to continue to create goals ongoing in their future.
And then the student advisor position description, the lovely advisor volunteer position at the English Empowerment Center. They are the ones who will interact with the students either virtually, in person, or via email. They go into class, they're expected to go in twice and speak to the students. And like we said, they build on their career and education, kind of build a pathway based on the students' responses, based on what the students interested in. We have students with large career and educational history behind them. And this advisors kind of research through different resources that could benefit the student to take advantage of the education and career history they already have.
Okay, so some key expectations that we have of the student advisor and the relationship with the student is that the relationship is one of respect and mutual agreements. We really want the student to be proactive and involved in the process with the advisor. We don't want to build a relationship where the student is dependent on the advisor, but really that it's a partnership. And to go from there, to build it from there. Also, the expectation is that the advisor would find resources in conjunction with the student. So the advisor may find some resources, but the student has, you know, responsibility to also seek out these resources and to research these resources and do what they can in terms of calling or researching or emailing, so that it's really a joint effort. And then also we were hoping that the advisor really helps to nurture an independent, lifelong learning individual when they're finished. We do this in our classes as well, but we really want the student to develop those short and long-term goals and to take steps and to really empower them to become individuals who know how to take next steps after they leave us. Going through it with the advisor really helps them to understand how that process works if they don't already understand, especially with the English skills required to do it. And so the goal and the expectation is that we create these lifelong learners who know how to navigate community resources.
Advisor duties, understanding the structure of our program, our schools, our class sites, our different course offerings is very important for an advisor. Through training and onboarding orientation, they'll be informed of this, but they have to have a great understanding of where a student could potentially be within our system. We have 3 different levels, and we'll get into that in a bit. And each level has 3 different parts. And as students advance, the advisor is supposed to recommend where's the next step, and that will be through conversation, through the intake and exit interview, that they're the volunteer's role is to identify those goals for the right now and for my career and my education, kind of long-term and short-term goals. We kind of strive these, like I said, to be more education and vocational aligned. We want our students to be further than just in a survivor job. And that's what we do find our students to have. They recommend events and local community networking events. We have our annual recognition ceremony where students are recognized for their work. They submit their essays. Advisors inform them on that, as well as any job fairs or local community centers that are hosting job fairs. We want to put this information in front of our students so that they're ready to start looking. They're ready to be in the zone of looking for employment.
If anyone has questions, feel free to jump in with the text box or the chat, or let us know.
Next, the advisor is expected to go into the class twice. Through the intake interview, they kind of go over everything with the students of education, career, their time at the English Empowerment Center. And through that, like I said, they'll speak with the teacher and they'll recommend any important programs, resources, social services that the student could definitely take advantage. They instill an understanding into the student with coursework and homework, how that's so important to advancing. The key is consistency, practicing every day through different methods, and keeping up with that and coming to each class is what the advisor really wants to let the student understand. And just the overall connection between the advisor and the student is the most important part. Through all these bullet points, it's kind of getting at creating a relationship with the students. It's so easy to kind of get lost and bogged down by your own decisions and your own confusion and fear of the unknown. The advisor's responsibility is to calm all that and put actions to everything.
So we have a basic process that we follow. The first step is we do advisor recruitment. We actually have a full-time volunteer coordinator on our staff, and we have what we call these 101 sessions that are like general information about how you can become involved in the English Empowerment Center. And so from the very beginning, from that 101 class that we hold for potential volunteers, we let people know that student advising is one of the options that they can become involved in. So from the beginning, before we even get, the names of potential advisors, we are setting the stage for this whole process. After we find people who are interested, Juan will reach out to that person and share the position description, share the goals, the purpose, the expectations, and then hold an advisor orientation. And the advisor orientation takes them through the process of how do you do an intake. Often the advisors will shadow another a skilled advisor who's already been doing it so that they can see it in action. But the orientation is really key because it helps them understand what we're looking for and what to, what to look for in the students, how to support them, and what the key goals are of what we're doing. So the intake process, we do have an intake form, and again, like Juan had mentioned earlier, the advisors will typically go into a classroom, or a teacher will talk about the advising program, or a teacher will talk about the advising program and let the students know that it's available, especially to those who are thinking about moving on to higher level learning or want some support in job search skills and that sort of thing. We do have an intake form that we're going to share with you, and we can make it available to you if you want a model to use in your own program. And we will share that a little bit later. And then after the intake process, there's a time where before the exit interview, there's the time where the student and the advisor do some research and find the resources that they think they need, and then come back together for an exit interview. And in the exit interview, those things are shared and gone over together. And we try to be as specific as possible in the exit interview. We try to lay out like the next 2 or 3 things that the student will be doing to reach their goals. And that, if that includes going to the local adult education program, then we try to give the student a contact number, a contact email, and hopefully a name of somebody. We try to do like a warm handoff so that the student can feel really comfortable and know that, okay, this person is expecting me. They know where I'm coming from. They know that I'm an intermediate English speaker, and that sort of thing.
Recruitment. Our English advisors, like Melissa said, we have a volunteer coordinator, and through the help of her great efforts, we work with hundreds of great volunteers, all with great experience in tutoring, teaching, TESOL. Some just retired from a different career and are interested in giving back to the community in ways like this. The recruitment in this past couple sessions have been a bit easier with the way we kind of run the program. We've added virtual advising, as well as kind of switched the program to an interest-based and needs-based. So when we are contacted to send someone out to advise a student, we have someone at the ready. We have about 18 or 19 different class sites, and we don't offer advising to each one. We offer advising to our advanced students, our level 3 students. And because there's only the need to advise those level 3s, we can be more flexible. Last semester we had 7 advisors. 2 of them doubled up on sites, to get 9 sites in total. 3 were virtual and 6 were in person. The expectation of needing to go into the classroom and speaking to the class and students twice makes it incredibly flexible. So our advisors are those who are kind of in a more flexible standpoint in their schedule and in their career. We have paraprofessionals who after work come and volunteer and speak to classes. We have a graduate student who in her off time between homework and courses, she'll advise our Herndon site. And we'll speak onto this in just a moment, onto what we need for the qualification, but that's typically the range that we're looking for. We have a volunteer orientation for every person who is interested in volunteering. They go through Amy, the volunteer coordinator, to kind of understand more about our organization, our class structure, and then they get sent over to me, and they'll have a great orientation where that just gets more honed in, and we kind of get to the nitty gritty of the program courses, as well as like the nice touch we want to have with your students. And of course, throughout checking in regularly with our advisors, we kind of make sure to keep the English empowerment standard up to a high point. And then moving on to qualifications.
So I just wanted, before we go into qualifications, I just wanted to mention that we do, because we are working with the lowest level English language learners, we offer advising to our level 3, which is our highest level, which is a low intermediate to intermediate level English speaker. And the reason we do that is because they're really, at that point, they have the English skills to pursue some of these goals with an advisor and or on their own. And then that's when they're graduating from our program. So after graduation, we're trying to set them up for future success. And one of the lessons we've learned over the years is originally we had done this only at a few sites and in person. It was before COVID. And we had all of the advisors go into specific level 3 classes and meet with every single student. And after some time, we realized that that was not really efficient or productive, because some students were going to remain in level 3 for maybe 2 more semesters and weren't ready to move on. So it's really now on a needs-based and an interest-based. We hear from the students what their need and interest is in advising. And if they have that need and interest, of course, with the encouragement of teachers who know they are leaving the program, then we work with those students. Okay, now with qualifications, ideally the advisor has experience in counseling, academic advising, adult education, or social work. Some kind of field that understands how to navigate resources and to deal with individuals on a personal level in a compassionate, understanding way. However, someone who possesses the following qualities is also suited to serve as an advisor. If they have a really high interest in advising adult students, then we consider them. If they are, if they have excellent listening skills, and they're able to relate with sensitivity and empathy to our clientele, then we would definitely be interested in having them. So they, they need to, again, communicate with empathy and understanding, have a way with talking to people that is empathetic and warm. We want somebody who is proficient in accessing valuable information on possible resources. We have created a resource document with most of the local resources where many or most of our graduating students tend to go to. But sometimes we have very specialized needs of students. I have an example. There was a South American young woman who did horse barrel racing in her country. And she wanted, that was one of the several things she talked to her advisor about. And this is a very unusual, skill that she had, but she wanted to try and continue this as she came to the United States, and she had no idea what kind of resources or if any were out there. So you know, the advisor did some searching in Google and was able to come up with an association of some sort of horse barrel racing in the United States, and was able to connect her to that. So that it's an unusual but interesting example of, you know, we want someone who's good and proficient with searching for resources. And then someone, you know, who has knowledge of our connections to networks in education and workforce services. If there's someone who has been in this community for a long time and they know what's out there, then that is another great thing for an advisor to have. So, you know, ideally they have, you know, some sort of experience, but we do mold the advisors to those who have the kind of qualities that we're looking for. And then we often have them shadow our more experienced advisors to get them really trained and up to speed. And of course, they have to be flexible. Yes.
Now, once they're with us, now they're signed up, the next step is the orientation. And the orientation is a bit multifaceted. When we're coming from fall and going into spring, it can be a debrief as well with our advisors from the previous semester and then the new oncoming advisors, kind of so that everyone can meet, get to know the team. Veterans can speak with the new recruitments and kind of speak on their experience, kind of as a supplemental research to shadowing someone. That conversation of well, what do you do, how do you usually ask this question is very important. And one of the first things we do once we get is to assign sites. That is based off of preference and seniority. We have a couple longtime advisors too who have been with the program for quite some time now, and they kind of have their preference. Our home site actually at James Lee, and they just have already noticed certain students, built connections, and it's just closer to them. But through that, other advisors can select their site, select multiple if they like, with virtual and in-person being an option. We've had a couple advisors in the past who have chosen to do both. They have different schedules on different days, and one works better for the other. Then we kind of go and talk about literally everything. We start with at first, we start with just the program, the 3 different courses, there are 3 different levels that we have, how they're split into 3 parts. Each semester is 1 part. If you advance, you can move on to the next level, but you are also able to be recommended to move on to the next level. And the guidance on the class visits obviously is the most important part. Like I said, I like for the old advisors and the new advisors to meet and talk. We go through the intake and exit interview form, and that's the best. I call it script for our advisors. They know what they're gonna ask, and usually what they're looking for is how to be very conscious of the student and how to glean the exact information that we want from the student in terms of what they're looking for, education, career, or just simply another resource for workforce placement. And then I walk through the documents as a whole. We walk through the intake and exit forms, our pathways document that you'll see in a moment, that helps our visual learners understand the different classes and the programs. And aside from our 3 classes or 3 levels with beginning English, we also offer a family literacy program where it's similar to beginning English, but the structure and the curriculum is more related to family, raising your children to go to school, and more related to that aspect of English learning. We have a virtual for work class, virtual English for work class, excuse me. And that one is just what it is. It's an English class geared towards workforce competency, learning on the skills jobs, learning resume editing and interview skills. We have a couple virtual intensive programs. They range in levels, but the gist is they're meet for 4 days a week for about 4 hours each time. It's 16 hours a week, and the requirements for it can be a little bit intensive. But if our student is ready for that, we let them know of that information. That can be tricky because if they're in certain sites, they already cannot make the morning availability, and all of our intensive programs are in the morning for the sake of time to fit in the 4 hours. And then we have our skills classes. We have conversation class and our writing skills class. Conversation is more open-ended, more the curriculum. There's lessons on how to start a conversation, the fine details of social interaction to keep a conversation going, and practicing your English through just oral speaking, through just speaking. And then our writing skills class, the gist of that is teaching the students paragraph structure. Of course, teaching them writing, semantics, or syntax, and the structure of a paragraph. But they do this through essay prompts, writing, and improving their skills to creating a great, nice paragraph. At the end of the semester, most students will typically submit that for our annual recognition ceremony to be recognized as someone with improvement and who is a student who needs to be celebrated within our little community, as well as tips, tricks, anything that I do or that other advisors do. We'll walk them through how to search for resources through our resource packet, and as well as Google or online. I have different websites, if you will, that I like to go to. The ACLU website has a lot of social service articles and recommendations as well, and that's definitely something that I like to show the advisors, as well as how to advising resources, kind of to get them to understand the correct conversations that they need to have with the students, understanding the mean mapping throughout our entire process here. As well as the next component, which is not in the orientation, but it is shadowing an advisor. That's typically you'll just follow an advisor. I love to set new advisors with our veteran advisor here at the James Lee Center. Like I said, she's been with us for a moment and she knows the program in and out. And she's just a great person to send new incoming advisors to. So when we do look for advisors, that is something I also try and take in mind, is leadership. How this position is incredibly leading, incredibly encouraging to whoever they're speaking to on the other end, whether it's a new advisor or a new or a student looking for next steps. And this can take a session or two. Typically, I do this in about an hour to 90 minutes. But of course, the orientation continues throughout your first semester. It's always a learn and go process. The flexibility makes it that much easier for an advisor to learn on the program and get a great understanding after each intake session.
So the next step is the advising intake. We do an intake at the start of the semester. An advisor meets with each student that signs up for advising. And during that time, the advisor it's getting to know the learner and establish a relationship with the learner. They do complete an intake form with guiding questions and pertinent elements. We do have an example of our intake form. We're going to share that on the next slide, so you can see what that looks like. The advisor gathers the important information about the student's background and education and work experience. They learn, of course, what the student would like to do in their future, whether that be immediate goals or long-term goals. And they also give the students the course catalog, which is essentially a page that maps out the path visually of where they've come in their learning and how far they've gone. And then what would be their next steps the following term or after they're finished with us. And then the intake also offers any resources and information that may benefit the student straight off the bat. If the student says, I want GED and they live in Fairfax, we contact the local adult education program, or we don't contact them, sorry, we give that information to the students to let them know that it exists, where they are. If we have a contact person, we can share that with them, phone number, email, website, that sort of thing. So that's what we do in the intake. But the key thing really at intake, I think, is making that relationship, that warm relationship, that comfortable relationship with the student. And this is where the disposition and the experience of the advisor is really helpful and really, helps to nurture that relationship and make the student feel comfortable with the advisor. Okay, I'm
And
gonna
here, yeah, we have the QR code for our intake form, and this is where the flexibility for the program I feel really comes to shine. This past semester, we had the intake form available to students to complete on their own. It was kind of their sign-up sheet, their way that they inform us, the teacher and the advisor, that they're interested in advising. And this was done kind of to speed up the process of creating a match between an advisor, the student, and the student. Typically, an advisor will be, matched to a site itself, but we like for the advisor to know who they're speaking to before they get there. And this kind of helped with that. We shared this form to the students the first couple weeks of class. They had time to complete it on their own. And it still remained our intake form. When the advisor got there, they used this to ask their questions and lead their interview. One thing that we saw throughout that process was the form is lengthy. The form, while it is simple information that the student can easily speak to, when we put it in this form, it's not a bit more challenging. It just the conversation changed for the advisors. But this it just made the program a lot more flexible. And so we'll show you what the questions that we typically ask our students. This time around, they just had a chance to answer these questions beforehand, and not many completed the form as a whole, and I expected that. So wherever there was missing response or the response wasn't clarifying enough, the advisor would kind of ask more about it, kind of speak more onto that question in itself. And one question I would like to highlight here on this intake form, and we'll talk to a bit about it later, is that if you have a college degree and what is your field of study? That is a question we kind of changed the language up a bit in the recent semester. The goal behind this question is, or it came about because in speaking, we saw that the situation in Afghanistan and Ukraine were getting a lot of refugees all over the country, but we're seeing it here in the DMV area. And because of the situation, a lot of families had to leave their homes and their home countries immediately. We see that there's students with paraprofessional degrees, years and years of education and employment behind them, but because they're in a new country, a new area, they can't really get back into their field of study or back into their career because their accreditation, their certification, or their license isn't accepted here. They have to have it accredited or translated, and we all know that can be very, very expensive or a lengthy process. And the biggest example was we had a student in our William Ramsey site, and she was the pediatrician back in Afghanistan, and obviously she can't practice medicine. We found her some resources that she can do so. She can go back into residency and work towards becoming a doctor here in America. But that process can take up to 7 years. Each exam through the USMLE program or exam program is $1,000 each. So to help her get to that, uh, we look for we helped her look for certification programs in phlebotomy or in nursing, medical records reading, anything that can get her into the medical field and into the medical field here in America. Was kind of her goal, and she ultimately end up taking some information about a nursing program. And that is kind of what this question is going after. What do you have in your past that we can take to build for your future? Standard advising, I feel like, but it's something that kind of gets missed, I feel like, in certain adult education, especially when we deal with people who are seniors or are at the middle to the end of their career and period. And but they're in a new country, so it kind of gets them to step one. Um, and then kind of switching gears to a bit further, I'm not sure, it's right here. Is learning easy or hard for you? And I got, during the orientation, I would get questions from the advisors. Well, what are we looking for with this? What is the meaning behind this question? And for certain students, it can be a bit much, but what we're asking typically is not, we're not asking to diagnose anybody with anything. We kind of just want to understand in general, socially, like is learning difficulty with all that's happening in your life? Is it challenging right now? What makes it challenging? We've seen certain answers where it's just timing, scheduling, or even they're in a moment in their life where learning they can't absorb as much at this moment. And we'll kind of mitigate our resources and all that and everything we recommend to them kind of around this question to make sure that what we're offering them is something that they really want and really would be interested in.
Can I add something, Juan, to that?
Absolutely. Yes.
So that question also speaks to really getting to know your learner and make them feel heard, because in contrast to some of the students that Juan was talking about with the advanced degrees, we do have students who have little or no formal education or interrupted education. And so, we do get those students into level 3 and who are ready to leave. And so sometimes that question can help us understand where the student is coming from and really help the advisor understand where they're coming from and give them that kind of moral support and help them build the confidence that they need to get to where they want to be.
Yes, absolutely. And this forum touches both on career and education. There is a next page that kind of goes on to the second part of goals and what are you looking for. When this forum is given to the students before the interview session, the advisors kind of take this as already identifiers for recommendations. They can, if a question is answered, they can see, oh, the student is kind of looking more or less for GED work, or they're kind of looking for something relating to nursing. They can kind of come to the first intake session with recommendations already at the go to give, whether it's full on, well, here's the next course that you could take, or it's here's a supplemental learning tool that you can use to help you advance your studies this semester. And once we get to the exit interview, we can give you more defined and detailed recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Juan, we have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to go back to
Okay.
the presentation and move on. I'm going to talk about this pathways document. I think this is good to see. This shows our pathway in the English Empowerment Center, starting with beginning English level 1. There are 3 sections. It usually takes a year to get through. Then there's level 2, and then there's level 3, which is the low intermediate to intermediate English language skills that they achieve. And then we do have some other, it was like a conversation, employment, and writing skills classes that they can move on to, or we have them move on to these big boxes, which is where we fill out those goals, those next steps for the learner. This is a nice visual for them to see, to show them how far they have come and all that they have achieved. And it really is, I think it helps build their motivation and make them encouraged for the next steps. Okay, I think we should briefly do the exit interview.
No worries. Yeah, for the sake of time, thank you again, guys. But we kind of covered most of it already. The exit interview is kind of the perfect bow to wrap up the semester. The student already kind of has an understanding of what they're looking for. Maybe it's not as defined, but there is some sort of understanding, and it kind of gets built further once they meet with their advisor for the final time. They put their recommendations to paper and help them, like Melissa said, give that warm handoff to anyone we're recommending. I tell my advisors one of the biggest resources that I love to recommend in the area is ACE and NOVA. ACE, the a continuing education for adults for the county of Fairfax. They have a wide range of classes as well as flexibility, and they're as equally as understanding of the students as we are. Same thing for NOVA. They have a wide range of classes and students from all over the place, just like ours. And then this just helps solidify what the student has learned throughout the process that in advising. And then they just close out the section. They are welcome to exchange contact information while it is not required. And the advisors themselves have an email with the program. They don't use their personal email. And some advisors have kept in touch, others, naturally went their own ways. But that is kind of what we like to see, that connection, that relationship between the advisor and the students. And yep, like we said, they get a nice little packet at the end with the pathways document. Certain times the advisor has included a copy of the intake or exit interview, just because there's really great notes that they've got together from the sessions that the student can really find beneficial to them.
Okay, I'm going to skip those and just go to the referral resources. We have a packet that we made. There's a link and a QR code here, so we can, we're going to share these slides with the the institute, and they can pass those out, or however we want to do that. These resources can have it's 30 pages long. It's all the stuff that's in the Northern Virginia area that we could think of that is common places that our students need or want to access for their next steps. We also have what we call snapshot in case students need social services beyond education and employment. Sometimes they will, confide in their advisor that they need mental health services or they need housing services. And this was done in conjunction with Anthem Health Keepers Plus, and we update this every year. So it's a great resource if you're in the Northern Virginia area and you'd like to access it. There is a live link here that you can get when we share the slides. So that is the overall presentation. I want to stop now to see if there are any questions, and we would be happy to answer those in the time that we have left. You can put them in chat or come off mute.
Mhm.
No questions. Okay.
So
All right.
I'm seeing some thank yous.
Okay. Okay. Great.
So thank you so, I'll wait to see if anybody has any questions, but in the meantime, I want to thank both of you. That was a lot of incredible information. Thank you so much for sharing that with the participants. As I mentioned, you will get a copy of the slides by the end of next week. So, you'll have access to all this wonderful, really in-depth information about their advising process. So thank you again so much.
You're welcome. And if anybody would like to contact us, our contact information is here, and we'd be happy to answer questions that you have going forward.
Okay,
Or
great.
even send any resources from your program. I'm always looking for anything to recommend to our students. So if you have anything, please send them my way.
Okay, and just a reminder that when this session ends, you will get an evaluation. So please take just a few minutes to fill that out. We value any feedback that we get. And I want to, again, thank Melissa and Juan for their presentation, and thank you all for participating, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks
everybody. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.